Yo guys, what's up? Ampro here, and I've got a pretty cool video today. So, when I first started my YouTube channel, I made a fireball tutorial, and it looked something like this. Hopefully this still works. So you get a fireball and then you throw it. And it does damage, some VFX I guess. It's kind of goofy looking, and yeah, the VFX aren't very great. So I decided to come back and revamp this as we are approaching 4K subs. It's gonna be split in two videos, one with the client side and one with the server side. So this is what it's gonna look like after the rework. It's actually in a tool because so many people have requested for a tool. I personally don't like using tools, but I'm gonna use a tool for this one. So the VFX here are half complete too. For the full thing, there's gonna be a ring of fire on the floor, and there's gonna be burn damage and all that. So the cool thing about this one is that it has gravity, as you can see. It's a pretty nice arch shape. There's a crater here, some effects, an explosion. No animation. My animator was not available at the time, but for the next one I think there will be an animation. So for this video, it's just gonna cover the effects here, all the fancy effects. And I've already went ahead and tested the server stuff and it all works. So don't worry about that. And yeah, without any more of me just randomly talking, we're gonna get into the actual thing now. So go ahead and make your blank base plate over here. It's looking very blank indeed. I'm gonna close this, and then I'm gonna drag this over here. Alright. So first things first, we're gonna want to organize our workspace. So I like to add a map folder, put my map in it, and then I also like to get a FX folder, which I usually just name FX, but you can name it FX if you want to, just all spelled out. So yeah, I've got my workspace pretty much set up now, and then we need to set up some of our scripts and everything. So we're gonna go to replicated storage here, and we're gonna put our remote function. That's gonna be pretty important. It's gonna allow us to communicate between the client script and the server script. So I just usually name it server. And then I'm gonna give you guys the entire assets folder because I'm great, and we can go over some of the effects. Let's just drag them into the workspace. Alright, so this is the fireball. It's a fireball, has a trail. Oh, this part? Wait, actually this part is the rubble. This is the rubble. Yeah, my fault. This is the actual fireball. When we use it, it's gonna have all these with emission. And yeah, this is what the fireball looks like. It looks a little bit better at night. And to make it look better, I usually turn down the brightness of the world. And then I also go into sun rays and then bring up the spread here, and then reduce the sun size, which you can go in here. And I think it's in the sky, I think. Yeah, sky. And then set it to 3 or something. Yeah, I usually think this looks a little better. But yeah, those are the fireballs. At night it looks even cooler. Alright, and then for the explosion, this is what the explosion looks like. I can find it. Oh, yeah, it's right here. So yeah, this is the explosion. and then there is a charge particle, and oops, as you can see, like kind of like charges inward. So yeah, I'm gonna unemit these. Alright. So yeah, these are the free VFX that I'm gonna be giving out in this video. So it's like 4 VFX, kind of crazy. Alright, now I'm gonna add my client script, which is actually gonna go into this tool, which I'm gonna name Fireball. If you don't want to use tools, I can tell you what to get rid of. So inside this client script, I'm just going to call it the client, and basically every client will have one of these. So first things first, you need to define a couple things. The player, character, humanoid, mouse. And then we're gonna grab the user input service, server, the actual tool. Just like that. And then some states. So I'm gonna have a debound state, charging state, equip state. And we're also going to need to get a like little function listener set up here for the tool. So whenever you equip the tool, equipped goes to true, unequip it, equipped goes to false, right? That way we can detect in the script whenever our tool is equipped. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna open up a user input service listener. So input begin, connect, and then we're given the input game process event. If it's game process event or we're not equipped, like we don't have the tool equipped, then we just return, which means we don't do anything. So next, after that, this is where pretty much all the client code goes. Input user input type equals enum user input type dot mouse button 1. So if we're clicking the mouse button 1 and we're currently not in our debounds, then we're now within our debounds. So basically that's the cooldown. And then we are charging now. Charging isn't going to do anything as of yet, but once we do the server side stuff, it's going to scale to the damage. Alright, so yeah. And then right over here, we're going to actually invoke to the server. We're going to tell it that, hey, we started charging, and the way I set it up is that we just pass in the move set. For this video, at least, the entire move set is just called Fireball. Obviously, if this were a real game, you'd probably call it like Fire or something, and then the move names would be like Fireball. But for this, the move set is called Fireball, and the skills subset that we're using is called Charge. So yeah. And we are also going to pass some information, but for specifically the initial charge, we don't need to pass anything, so I just pass a nil table. And I'll tell you guys why later. Here's the charge count. We start at 0, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We're not going to do too much to it except for add 1 during the charge. So let's actually create a charge counter. So within this repeat, we're gonna charge plus equals 1, and we're gonna do this until charging is equal to false, or we just unequip the tool. So I don't really know how to handle whenever you unequip the tool, so for this one, I just made it so that if you unequip the tool in the middle of the charge, it's just gonna launch the move, because that kind of makes sense to me. You can't like cancel a move right after you already start charging. Alright, so yeah. Now, during the charge, I personally like it to make it so that the player kind of rotates with the mouse, it'll point towards the mouse and it'll be prevented from moving. So the way I usually do that is by making a body gyro, or you can use an align orientation, but this one's just shorter, so I just like that use this. Basically, I'm making a body gyro, I'm parenting it to the character to humanoid root part. Its C-frame, or like orientation plus direction position, is basically the character's position pointing towards the mouse's position, I guess. And then the maximum torque, which is like how much force can be applied, is very big. It's 3000 power, 100 dampening, and its name is called Align. You can kind of name it whatever. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is to make sure that our player isn't moving around or like straying from their position. So I use a body position. I think there's something called a line position as well, which pretty much does the same thing. But I just use this one because it's shorter. I would recommend to use the other one. It's a little bit more complicated though, so yeah. And also, just for like a final check, we want our walk speed to be equal to 0, and our jump height also to be equal to 0. So now basically our player has just stopped moving. I'm going to now loop during this charge sequence, loop this thing's C-frame, so it constantly updates. And that's pretty simple, you just do it like this. And yeah. We also just want to add a weight in here, so our game doesn't like crash task.wait. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then after the charge, right, so we've basically let go of the charge, we want our character to start moving again. So these are the default walk speeds. If you have like other walk speeds and jump heights, put those there. And once we've let go, we want to tell the server that we're gonna fire the fireball. So I call it fire, you can call it whatever. If you're using this as an actual skill framework, call this fire, call this fireball launch or something. I don't know. But you get the point. This is the set, and this is the specific part of that set. And this is just the data that we pass in. This time we actually do need to pass in some data. We need to tell the server what our charge is and the player's position. And the reason why we need to know the player's position and why we can't just get it from the server is that there's some like delay between updating the player position between server and client. It's kind of weird, so this is the only workaround, I'm pretty sure. You just send it from the client. Whenever you do this on the server side, you definitely want to check everything to make sure it's correct. I'm not going to do a anti-cheat tutorial since that would take too long. So after this, we're going to destroy our body gyro and our body position because we don't need them anymore. And then here's where you put the cooldown, I guess. Wait 1 debounce equals false. And to make this easier for you guys, let's just do this. For mine, my cooldown's gonna be 1 second, so there we go. This looks easier for you guys, so you don't have to look back and find out what all of the weights are for. And now we need some way of just detecting that we've actually let go of the mouse button, right? So this is very similar to the input began. But if we've equipped the weapon and dot user input type is equal to oops, mouse button 1 and charging equals false. Nice. So already this should mostly work. Oh wait, no, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. Actually, a reason why, I'll tell you later. But as you can see, none of it's gonna work. And that's because for the fireball tool, you gotta make sure that it has require handle off. And then we also need our server script to actually listen for the server invokes. So I usually call this thing like server handler. And we're gonna quickly just reference our server function, whatever. And then we're also going to listen for the server invoke. And as I said before, the first thing is always going to be the client, so don't worry about that. But as I was saying before, we send the set, the skill from that set, and then some data. And to add some security to this, I always do this. So data.character is equal to client.character, because this part can't lie, can't tell you, can't lie about which player it is. This is like the bare bones minimum of anti-cheat. You're gonna need a lot more than this. Oh, and this is the I guess replicator from server. This is basically all it is. We compare the distance to 125. This is the maximum distance. And once again, I'll make it simple for you guys. So max distance. And the max distance doesn't mean like the maximum distance the fireball can travel. This is like the maximum distance that people can actually see the fireball from. I think this would have to be a little bit higher than 125, maybe like 600 or something, because the fireball can go really far the way I've done it. But I usually keep this kind of like lower. That's just like an easy way to save some performance on people, so they don't have to like run this every time. So now from here, I'm invoking the client now. And I'm invoking every player, and I'm basically sending the same information: the set, the skill, the data. So this has to go somewhere, right? Like this is invoking the client. We're not gonna be invoking this because that's weird. We're actually gonna invoke a replicator, just like an effects replicator. It's like a very simple effects replicator. But yeah, let's add a module script. I'm gonna call it fireball. You would name this would be like the skill set. For this tutorial, the skill set is called fireball. And then back to the replicator here. This code's pretty short, so I'm just gonna paste it in here. Should be pretty simple too. You get the remote, make a table called effects, and then you require everything that's like under here, like fireball, and if you were to have more like on a water ball, it would require those. And then yeah, you can save some easy performance just by doing destroy the module right after. This is just for organization. Alright, now let's go to the fireball module, and this is where all of our effects code comes in. So for the effects code, first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rename the module. It's not going to be called module, it's going to be called fireball module. And I'm going to grab a couple services and references here. Assets, it's replicated storage dot assets dot fireball, and as you can see, got all of our assets there. The effects folder is just that right there. Run service is like something that like runs throughout the game, like every frame it updates. Tween service, I'm pretty sure we all know what tween service is. It's like an animating service. And we are going to need a couple settings here to make life a lot easier for you guys. So for me, the maximum time of the fireball is going to be 3. This number is kind of inaccurate because the way I did it isn't very accurate into tracking the time. And the speed of the fireball is going to be 150 studs. Gravity is going to be 80 studs. There's going to be 16 pieces in the crater. It's like 16 segments of the crater. if you guys seen before, it's like a little crater whenever you like hit the wall or something. Oh, cool thing about this, it actually counts for like the direction or the normal vector of the thing that you hit. Maximum debris, that's like the little rocks that like fly out, and then radius is just the radius of the crater. These are like all the settings you really need. And straight up, I'm gonna do the charge function. And I'm gonna go over the whole like client server stuff again later. Just want to get all this out of the way. And yeah, so remember how in the server we did data.character is equal to client.character. So we actually do have access to the character now. And the way the server invoke client thing worked is it goes to the replicator and it goes to effects, right? Which is technically this script, and then it's like a table within the script, and then it goes looking for the set, and we've already required the set into that table, which is fireball, and the specific effect was charge, right? So it would go into fireball.charge, and then pass in the data, and that's exactly what we have here. That's fireball.charge, and we've got our data. So the charge code is like super simple. I'm gonna paste it in here. This welds to your player's hand, so it should look correct with animations. I'm gonna give you guys a second to like look at it. You can pause the video for sure, but the way I'm doing it here is I clone the charge particle, unanchor it, weld it to our character's hand, and I name the charge the character name fireball charge. The reason why we're doing this is so that we can remove it later on. So yeah. And one thing that you should definitely be aware of is that sometimes I like to clear all of the effects folder once I die, once like the player dies. That's just an easy way to like clean up some of your stuff in case debris service, you didn't like do debris service correctly. But yeah, just make sure you have some sort of backup for removing all effects in the effects folder. Alright, so that's the charge function. I'm gonna run it now, see if everything's working. If not, that'll be kind of sad, but no, it's working. I can look around. It like forces me to look around. See? So when we let go though, something breaks, and that's because we don't have the fire function written down yet. So let's get that fire function done. Alright, so this is like where all the math comes in. So you guys gotta make sure you do it exactly as I do it. So initially, I'm gonna just get the character, set up a raycast parameters. This is for the fireball itself. And we are also going to remove our charge, the charge particle. And this is how we're gonna do it. Remember how I named it? Well, now I'm just looking for the named charge particle. I'm gonna disable the particles, wait 1 second, and then remove it. Nice. Now we're gonna need to make the actual fireball. So I'm gonna do the fireball. It's pretty much the exact same thing as the charge particle up here. We just clone it, position it, and I'm positioning it to the start position, so where it is right now, pointing towards the end position. And if we look back on over here, the end position is our mouse position basically. And I'm parenting it, and I'm enabling all of the little particles. So now we're going to keep track of the time, a connection, and also the velocity of the fireball. So the start time is just equal to the current time. The connection variable is done, and then the velocity is going to be this minus this, which basically gives you a direction and also a magnitude, and then we unit it so it has a magnitude of 1, and then we just multiply it by our negative speed. You could also just flip these around and multiply by negative speed. I just messed up here and I just used negative speed instead. But yeah, that's velocity. And connection is going to be equal to run service dot render stepped connect function and then delta time. So right away we're going to add a function so that our fireball removes itself after the max time, which is 3. And this is usually how I do it. So if the current time minus the start time is greater than the max time, or you can do greater than or equal to, but it's going to be very unlikely that it's ever going to be equal to. So I just usually do it as greater than max time. Then we're going to basically just fade out the fireball and stop the connection from continuing its run. So yeah, this part of code right here, it's just to make sure if we don't hit anything at all, that it removes itself. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a raycast. Now for this raycast, we're going to start at the fireball position, and the direction is going to be the velocity multiplied by delta time and subtracted from gravity multiplied by time squared. Delta time is basically the time between each frame, and that's why we have to multiply everything by delta time, because everything is supposed to be in units of seconds, but as you know, we're not running at 1 frame per second, right? It's like a lot of frames, like 60 plus frames per second, so we need to account for that, and that's why we use delta time. The parameters is just those parameters. So if there is a result, then we need to position the fireball position to the result position, right? And this also means we've hit something and we should do all of the effects. So we're going to get rid of the fireball effect, we're going to fade it out, and then we're going to add an explosion effect, and then we're going to make all the particles within the explosion emit. And this is the math to position it so that it's like correctly oriented against like a surface. Really simple. And then after this, we just gotta make sure that we're disconnecting our event run service, and we are also adding explosion and fireball to the debris service, so then they get removed. Explosion for 3 seconds, fireball for 1 second. And this is usually where we do the crater, and I'm actually going to provide you guys a little mini crater module or crater function as well. You can make that into a module or something. It's not the best crater, but it's like a pretty decent crater, I think. So I'm going to write a basic crater module in here as well, and this is what we're passing in: the angle, radius, and then the result. Angle, radius, result. So basically we're going to do like a double layered crater, kind of like how GPO does it. One of those like Roblox games that are pretty popular. So crater, rotation, radius, and then the results, the raycast result. So you guys have probably seen this code before, because this is nearly identical to the crater code from the last fireball. But let me go through it. Let me zoom out a little. If this is like hard to read, sorry. It's like the smallest amount that I can zoom into. I don't think I can zoom anymore. Where's like, is there a zoom button or something? No. But yeah, this is like the only size. Otherwise it's cut off. So we're making a part and we're doing a little bit of math here. We're just dividing the circumference by the number of pieces to get the length of each segment. What in the world just happened? Okay. And then over here we're just randomizing the size on the other axes. And we're anchoring the part, we're C-framing it to match with the surface orientation. And then over here we create a C-frame basically, which is we rotate it, and then we also rotate it by 90 degrees here, and then we multiply it by negative radius, which basically pushes it forward, and then we add that rotation here. That's like how inward and how like how deep the crater is basically. And then over here we add a raycast parameter, so then all the crater parts are the correct color. If there's nothing there, then that part of the crater gets removed. And yeah, if this ever fits like that, then I think this was actually supposed to go here. Yeah, that makes more sense, right? So if our part, we put our part position to its position plus the normal times -4, so you move it like into the surface that it's in, and we lift it out. We lift it out with this, and then after 2 seconds, we put it back within the wall. Then we the part destroys if, once again, there's nothing, no surface. I'm gonna zoom out again so you guys can see the full thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the crater. And for this would all work, right? And so the last thing I think for this is the rubble. The rubble code is, once again, just a ton of random numbers. It's not like complicated or anything. You're just making a part basically. We make a part of a random size. We position it to a little bit out of the surface, and then we give it a random velocity here. And then after 0.5 seconds, we get rid of the little fire particle that's on the debris. And then after 1.5 seconds, we fade it out. And so there actually is something that we need to do. What if it doesn't hit? If it doesn't hit, it needs to position itself to the position that it should be the next frame. So the math for that is basically this. It's equal to its own position added to the velocity multiplied by delta time minus the gravity time squared times time squared. And then the actual velocity is the velocity minus gravity times time. So velocity is decreasing linearly with that, but the actual positioning is based exponentially. Because it's like v plus at squared, and in this case v is velocity times delta time, and then plus at squared is minus gravity times delta time squared. So yeah, that's some basic physics. And then if we run this, it should work now actually. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And just to show you guys that it does work with horizontal surfaces as well, we're gonna add a new part, slap it in there, and set it to anchored, and then increase its size. And I'll also add like a sloped one too, because this is actually so cool. So let's grab the fireball. And as you can see, oh, the reason why that's so ugly is because the material here is really ugly. Put it as smooth plastic and it'll look great. Never use plastic unless you need it to look disgusting. As you can see, we got like that double crater, which I think is pretty nice. And then it works on that surface as well. As you can see, perfectly, very smooth. And there actually is a cooldown. I have to wait exactly 1 second after, and then we can actually throw it like really high, and then you'll see that it like starts to come back down, right? And you can actually like shoot things above objects, you know? You could probably repurpose this to any projectile. I just really like fireballs. And you can see the little debris looks really nice too. It's like sparks. And if you like aim it like super far up or something, you can see that it actually disappears after like 3 or so seconds. See, disappear around there. So if you guys have an animation, like the way you would do it is that you would add a charge animation here. It'll like loop, and then when you actually throw it, that'll be another animation. You stop the looped animation. It's all in the client script. So yeah, it's pretty cool. There's like a little shockwave as well. If you guys like this video and you want to see the part 2, make sure you guys subscribe. We're really close to 4K, and if we do hit 4K subscribers, who knows, I might actually just upload like a crazy like tutorial, like a time stop, or I don't know, transformations, something like crazy, like really cool. These are all pretty simple, but yeah, I'm gonna put the assets in the description for you guys to download, and make sure you guys also join the Discord server where a lot of people can help you with your script, and there's also just some people there who can like help you with stuff that aren't in the script, just like coding overall. So it's a nice community. You can share your stuff there, and once a month, towards the end of the month, I do a viewer game review. So if you're interested in that, start working on your game, and then hopefully I'll be able to play it and I'll tell you about everything. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.